get out of the house.
Good afternoon and welcome to the September 15, 2021 regular meeting of the Gates County Board of Commissioners. I am Dr. Anthony Riddick, 2021 Chair of the Board. I am joined this afternoon by Vice Chair Jack Owens, Commissioner Ray Freeman, Commissioner Linda Hoffler, Commissioner Jonathan Jones, County Manager Tim Wilson, County Attorney Philip Godwin, and Clerk to the Board, Jaleesa Chestnut. If you would like to make a public comment, please don't forget to sign up at the form at the front of the courtroom. At this time, I would like to call up Reverend Joseph Whitney of St. John AME Zion Church in Sunbury, North Carolina, to lead us in prayer. Let us stand.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for such a beautiful day you have allowed us to see. And God, we know it was only because of your grace and your mercy that we're here today. We ask you, God, to bless every commissioner today, that they take care of the work of the county. Bless every person that has come today to join in. We hope every deliberation, every discussion be beneficial to the people, because we come for one purpose, that for the betterment, the lives of the people of Gates County. We thank you, God. Bless them individually, bless their families, and be with us throughout this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. First item on the agenda is the agenda approval agenda with amendments. I believe that Commissioner Freeman has an amendment. We had asked Commissioner Freeman to present an opiate presentation, and the guest speaker is en route, and she should be here shortly. So we want to make sure that we are conscious of her time. So I want to amend the agenda, move that presentation up under presentation, item 3, opiate update, Commissioner Ray Freeman, with Ms. Ashley Stoop of the Albemarle Regional Health Commission. Do I have a motion to make that amendment?
With that addition, Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Discussion, Madam Chair.
Discussion?
I sent an email to the board today. I was sitting beside the library using their Wi-Fi, so I don't know if it went through, about would like to have closed session pursuant to 143-31811A3 and 6 for a couple of minutes after the commissioner comments tonight.
Let's do one amendment at a time. First, let's do the one for the opioid update by Commissioner Ray Freeman. It's been properly moved in second. We'll be ready to vote. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. So we'll move that under 3, presentation, opioid update, Commissioner Ray Freeman and Ms. Ashley Stewart as soon as she gets here.
And she has arrived.
She has arrived. Thank you. Thank you. Repeat what you just said, Commissioner
All
Jones.
right. I guess we also need to amend it with new business letter A taken out as well. I guess that can be a part of my amendment or adjustment, that we add in BIX before the adjournment, going into closed session 143-318.11A for purposes of 3 and 6.
We have a motion to add or go into closed session. Do I have a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. There will not be a closed session amended to this agenda. Also, we have removed the grass cutting contract under A, new business, from new business. I have a note here.
Yes, I had requested that, Madam Chair, because I did extend the period for the acceptance of bids for a little bit longer duration to allow some additional people to submit bids for consideration.
Okay, we have a motion to remove the grass cutting contract from the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Let the record show that Commissioner Jones was a nay. All other aye. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
I make a motion that the agenda be approved as suggested.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Let the nay be shown that Commissioner Jones was a nay.
Madam
Motions?
Chair, I have a motion about consent agenda.
Okay.
I make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
And I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries. Okay. Moving right along. Put this away and get it out of my way. I understand that Ms. Ashley Stoop is here. Ms. Stoop,
She is.
will you come forward, please? And thank you for coming. Come to the podium right there. I believe you have a PowerPoint.
Yes, I believe Mr. Warren's going to get that going for me.
Okay.
And Madam Chairman, may I present to the
Yes, you
board
may.
and to our citizens too, Ashley Stoop. She has become a very close friend of mine and also allowed me to sit on the board, Albemarle Regional Health Services Board. And she's even challenged me and asked me to serve as a judge on one of the trials we had. And frightened enough to have our distinguished attorney in here, he would hate to think that I would be a judge in a case that was a trial. But thank you, that she presents so much. She has brought so much to Gates County. When we first had the pandemic, those first numbers that we were getting was because of Ashley. And she serves as Director of Policy, Planning, and Preparedness. She is a HIPAA Privacy Security Officer for Albemarle Regional Health Services. Okay. So there's no one else I could call on other than Ashley. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As Mr. Freeman alluded to, I have been quite involved with COVID, so definitely bear with me if I start drifting off and just talking COVID numbers during the opioid presentation. It's probably the first time.
I come to the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
We're live streaming.
Oh, live streaming. Oh, no, technology.
Yes,
yikes. Excellent, excellent. Well, yeah, so, again, I've been doing COVID presentations for probably the better part of a year and a half, so I'm honored to be here. This is quite a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and so it is definitely something that we need to be focusing more on, and so thank you so much for allowing me to come here today. Hopefully I will not derail. We'll stay on topic tonight, and we will not talk about COVID, but we can go to the next slide. So you can see here, there are many types of opiates, both natural and synthetic. You can see here that really the opioids are used in many different forms, and we have the traditional definition. Most people are most commonly referred to our opiates as our Vicodin, our Percocet, a lot of our prescription drugs that we use for painkillers. What has happened over the years, and you can go to the next slide, is that people have developed a great dependence on opiates. And so the increased tolerance of an opiate, many times prescribed by physicians for pain management purposes, has really led to an increased tolerance of those medications, causing individuals to actually become addicted to the medications. You can see here some various signs of exposure as well. Go to the next slide. When we're talking about opiates, we're really looking at our more traditional opiates, our morphines, but then also the synthetic types and the semi-synthetic as far as heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanyl. We are seeing more and more of these being developed on the streets and available to our public. This slide really talks about more of the strength of the different types of opiates themselves, but the next slide is really one that I think is quite powerful. When you think of different prescription medications, we're used to seeing those pills, right? So we're used to seeing individuals getting prescribed pills. We see that information. We see those pill bottles that people use. But as they become more and more hooked on these medications, what they often do is they turn to heroin, also the street drug. Heroin by itself is quite powerful. What you see here on this slide in that vial is actually the amount of heroin it could take to kill a person, okay? Fentanyl, we've all heard of fentanyl, the fentanyl pain patches and those types of things. And the next vial, that is the amount of fentanyl it would take to kill a person, okay? Now, who knows what carfentanyl is? You ever heard of carfentanyl?
No.
Do you know how it's used? It's an elephant tranquilizer. We are now beginning to see drugs and heroin and others, even our prescription pills being manufactured, on the streets with carfentanyl. That little speck right there on that screen is the amount of carfentanyl that it would take to kill someone. So this is what we are beginning to see on the streets. You can go to the next slide. Just to really highlight how powerful these substances are, there's some case studies here noted. Officers working, actually just brushing it off of their clothing, not knowing what they were coming into contact with, having to need Narcan to revive him. This is why a lot of the personal protective equipment that a lot of our law enforcement and EMS agencies are having to buy more of in different types. This is a lot of the reason. And you can see this last case study down here, 20 pounds of fentanyl was found in New York City in August of 2017. And 20 pounds of fentanyl in its purest form is potent enough to kill half of the population in New York City. So, we could actually even see this type of chemical compound being used for a biological type weapon. Okay? Go to the next slide. So these are the signs of an overdose. I won't go into a lot of detail here. You all can definitely get a copy of these slides. But this is the traditional signs of an overdose. The next slide goes through naloxone. So how many of you have heard of naloxone? So this is what is used to reverse an overdose. And it actually blocks those receptors from binding to an individual's body. So typically, we hear a lot Narcan used. It can be injected. It can be used through the nasal passages. Many of our law enforcement officers, and they carry the one-dose spray that's up there in the top. EMS agencies obviously carry this. This medication really, if you are not going through an overdose, it's really not going to do anything to you, okay? But what we are beginning to see is that our fentanyl, our carfentanil, and these other opiates are getting so strong that it's taking more and more of this naloxone to bring someone back. And when you use it too much, that's when we can have some contraindications. Okay. The opioid withdrawal symptoms. So a lot of times what we see when individuals are going through addiction, have substance use disorder, they want to quit. They don't want to live like this. And so the reason that they are constantly going back for more is because the withdrawal symptoms are so severe. I won't play any of these videos, but I have plugged in several videos for you all that really kind of gives you that firsthand look of what people go through. And Rebecca's story here, she actually kind of highlighted her withdrawal process, her detox process for the public to really show what she's going through and how painful it can be. Go to the next slide. When we think about the opioid epidemic, it actually happened in about 3 different ways. So you can see wave 1 was the rise in prescription medications and prescription opioid overdose deaths. Around just before that, what we saw was that 5th vital sign, pain. How much pain are you in, right? So how many times have you been asked that when you go to the doctor, when you go to the hospital? What's your level of pain? And we have this idea that pain is a bad thing, right? And we want a prescription. If it can fix us, we want it. Give it to me. I want to get better. We need to move on. Well, pain is actually a very good thing. It lets you know how your body is healing, how your body is reacting. Now, obviously, we don't want to be in too much pain, and we do need assistance to some degree. But in our world of prescriptions, and that, let me have it now, let me fix it now, that's really where we started to see that trend. In 2010, we saw more of a rise in our heroin overdoses. And then really in 2013, 2014, 2015, that is when we saw the rise in synthetic opioid overdose deaths. What we really saw happen then is we began to crack down on the prescription drugs, right? So we began to realize, hold on, people are doctor shopping. People are even going to their vets to get pain pills. They are doing anything that they can to get this prescription medication, and there were doctors who were writing those prescriptions. So laws and efforts came into effect to really combat that, and then we saw that synthetic rise. Okay, so of course, where are you going to go? You're going to turn to the heroin. You're going to turn to those types of things. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through all of these facts. I've got a lot of data here. We're going to just try to quickly go through this because I know you all are very busy. But, you know, you can see this information. This is definitely a nationwide problem. So 136 people die every day from an opioid overdose in the United States. And over 70% of the nearly 71,000 drug overdose deaths in 2019 involved an opioid. That is pretty tremendous. The next slide talks about some of our North Carolina facts. And one that is really staggering to me, and this number has risen every year. In 2019, an average of 6 North Carolinians died each day from an unintentional medication drug overdose. And, you know, when you look at the cost, I mean, there is a cost to this, to our economy and so much more. And in 2015 alone, $1.3 billion total combined cost related to opioid deaths. Next slide. All right, so we see here again that pain was added as that 5th vital sign, but this to me is really staggering. The red line that you see here is looking at poisoning deaths. The purple line, can y'all see what that is? Motor vehicle deaths. So look at the public health interventions that we have done surrounding seat belts and car safety. We've done so good with motor vehicle deaths, right? But unfortunately, what are we seeing? Now, unintentional drug overdose deaths, poisoning deaths have now bypassed our motor vehicle deaths. Okay, next slide. The next few slides, I did try to highlight Gates County a little bit more for you. So this is looking at North Carolina and the rate of unintentional medication and drug overdose deaths from 2015 to 2019. And as you can see, Gates County is above the state rate per 100,000 North Carolina residents. So Gates is at 27.8, while statewide we are at 18.5. The next slide. you can see that 92% of all medication and drug overdoses were unintentional, which does lead to more of this, recreational type use. Next slide also looks at our overdose deaths, and you can see Gates County once again is higher than the statewide average from 15 to 19. Next slide. We see the majority of our cases in American Indians and males and whites and those 25 to 54 years of age. But really, this particular epidemic doesn't discriminate. There are so many people who are impacted by this epidemic. Next slide. And then you can see here that the illicit opioids, so those more of the street drugs, your heroin and those types of things, the fentanyl, that was roughly 78% of deaths in 2019 were attributed to that. All right, next slide. Again, just more information on what we're seeing. Another thing that we really are seeing is that more substances are being combined. So, for instance, we are seeing fentanyl lacing other substances. So someone may say, well, I'm not using heroin, I'm not buying heroin, I'm just using cocaine, or I'm just using marijuana. Well, what we're finding is that those substances are also being laced with the fentanyl and the carfentanil. Next slide. Again, we thought that we were making some progress around the 2018 timeframe. Unfortunately, we are seeing a rise. I think 2020, obviously, with the impact of our COVID pandemic and the mental health issues surrounding that, when we have limited face-to-face contact and all of those things, unfortunately, I think we're going to continue to see this rise. Next slide. And again, we talk about our high school students. 14% of North Carolina high school students reported using prescription drugs recreationally in 2019. Okay, next slide. This slide is really interesting to me because it's looking at the number of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs that the state lab is finding. So a lot of times, I don't know if you've heard of how the state lab and the office of the chief medical examiner is really running behind. And honestly, this opioid epidemic is largely due to that, because what we are seeing is that there are more and more types of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs that are being created, and it takes more time for the medical examiner to be able to type it out and identify it. So it is really causing the autopsy process to take much longer to determine cause of death. Next slide. This particular slide to me, when I started working in some of these efforts in around 2013, 2015, this slide and this image is really what struck me. So if you look at this, I have heard time and again, well, we don't have a lot of deaths. I mean, really not many people are dying from it. But if you look at this closely, for every one opioid death, there are 173 residents misusing opioids. And that spoke volumes to me. I have several whys in my life, from family to loved ones, and we often don't know what people are going through. And this is a disease. So, when we think about this epidemic, it's not just about the deaths. It's about the situations that we don't know are going on throughout our communities. I ran into a colleague just the other day that I used to work with, and I hadn't seen her in a while. And we were catching up, and her stepson died about 5 months ago from an overdose. And they had no idea. She said, of course, hindsight, now that they're looking back, they're seeing some of the signs, but they really had no idea. Next slide. And then this again is for Gates County. So we talk about the cost. It is definitely a human cost, but you can see here, looking at the medical cost and the work loss cost in Gates County alone, so those combined costs in 2019 is just shy of $4 million.
In Gates County.
In Gates County. Yeah, so next slide. All right, so we'll breeze through this. This is just some of our emergency department data. So this is looking at our regional data from emergency department visits, and this is a summary slide of what we're seeing as far as medication and drug overdose, unintentional medication overdose, heroin, and opioids. And you can see the medication, or the unintentional medication overdose, is definitely still increasing along with our heroin and opioid for the entire region. All right, the next slide. This breaks down, and you can look at this a little bit closer as far as what we're seeing by county and the region as a whole for medication and drug overdose. And then the next slide looks at unintentional medication or drug overdose. And overall, as a region, we are increasing still. The next slide looks at heroin overdoses. The next slide looks at opioids. All right, next slide. This looks at some of our EMS data. So when we're looking at runs across our EMS systems and the premise data, you can see the number of naloxone administrations across the district. 2021, that data is obviously not up to date. We just pulled half of the year, but we're looking both at naloxone administrations and opioid calls. All right, so why is this happening? Next slide. So this presentation by Curtis Taylor really spoke to me. I really thought that this was very interesting. So it truly is a chemical reaction. It's a disease. You cannot hold your breath until you die. Your brain chemistry won't let you. I mean, it just can't happen. Drugs hijack and release neurotransmitters, and the brain feels like every single survival mode is met by the drug. So we had a young lady who was in one of our clinics, and she was totally anti-drugs, but her boyfriend was hooked. And she just did not understand. Why are you an addict? Can't you just quit? Just quit and make the choice. You don't want to live like this. So she thought that she was being smart, that she was going to prove him wrong. She was going to try it one time and just show him, because he kept telling her, you'll get hooked. She tried it one time, and she became an addict. She definitely suffered from substance use disorder. She ended up in jail. She had numerous issues. Luckily, a law enforcement officer helped her, helped get her on the right path, and she is doing much better today. But one time, that's all it takes, is one time. Next slide. We also have a young woman who is quite amazing, and we've had several conversations, and we actually talked about this one day. This is directly from her. I said, your friends are dying. Why didn't that make you want to stop? I just wanted to die too. Death had to be better than what I had been through as an addict. She's doing remarkable today. She's got a beautiful family, but this definitely is something where people truly feel like they live in chains. Next slide. So there is a project called the SAFE Project from a retired U.S. Navy admiral. There are many different ways that people usually end up getting hooked on opiates. There's obviously the party situation, obviously the overprescribed for medical reasons. There have been trends, particularly with the prescription drugs, where we saw a lot of high school athletes getting hooked on prescription drugs and then it leading to other areas. And obviously self-medication for mental health. Again, it takes over that part of your brain that just makes you feel better. So you can imagine a lot of people have very traumatic lives, and this is a way for them to escape and deal with that without, having to ask for that help. No one has the same history, so, unfortunately that there's not a one-size-fits-all as we work through this. But it's very important for people to realize that it's not a moral failing, it is a disease. Next slide. So the next two slides, and you can click to the next one, these are just stories of addiction, and these are just stories that I think are quite remarkable. Actually, the very last one is Dana. She actually has ties to Northeastern North Carolina, and she has worked very closely with our community. She's come here and helped us. And many of our local responders would know her husband because he served as a regional coordinator for our emergency management services for quite some years. So she struggled through addiction. She walked the streets in New York City, but she has now come out on the other side and really is an advocate for those fighting substance use disorder. So next slide. So what are we doing? What can we do? We do have our Albemarle Overdose Prevention Coalition. The next slide outlines what Chief Deputy Reed stated. So obviously we want to go out there and we want to save the world, right? But I love Chief Deputy Reed's statement, and you can see it here. If we save or impact just one life, we have done our job, and we have made an even bigger impact on our community, more than ever can be measured. We have developed trust amongst those served and created hope for that individual, their family, and their friends, and it will spread. And I think that is so true. So what we've done on the next slide, you can see that we really have been in existence since about 2015. We've got several smaller grants where we have focused a lot on some of our educational courses. We did a lot early on with our providers surrounding the prescription drug movement and some of those laws. We worked to provide our law enforcement officers with Naloxone initially, done a lot of marketing and education. The next slide. We have updated our website, so there's a lot of really good information on our website. And the next slide actually outlines a lot of the resources that we have compiled for our region as far as different support group meetings, treatment centers, and those types of things. The next slide. Again, the naloxone piece, we can go ahead and skip that. We talked about that. All right. This is actually one of our biggest initiatives right now, and Gates County is actively involved in this. We've received a $275,000 grant to implement the community response team. Essentially, one of the biggest areas of need that we saw is that people just didn't know where to go for help. You know, who do I call? Where do I go? And so what we are doing is we are taking a multifaceted approach and working with our community partners, working with EMS, and working with law enforcement. And so there are some evidence-based practices that we are implementing. So with EMS, we are using the post-overdose response team concept, where if EMS agencies do a reversal using naloxone, then they will follow up with that individual to offer assistance, offer help. Our law enforcement officers are looking at the law enforcement assisted diversion program. So if we have low-level drug offenders who truly want help, they can opt to actually help that individual get into treatment, and as opposed to charging them. And then also just the community referral way. You know, if a family member, you know, DSS, the health department, anyone wants to get help, who do you call? And so we've streamlined this to have a partnership with Mobile Crisis and Integrated Family Services. Well, they will be our intake provider. And so we're in the process of developing those protocols and streamlining that effort. Then we will work with that individual through a case management system, because as we have discussed, this isn't a choice, this is a disease, and there are other issues at play. And social determinants of health, how many of you have heard of that? Mm-hmm. Right? So when we're looking at housing, we're looking at transportation, we're looking at food insecurities, you know, just health equity across the board. How can we help this individual gain that stability and security so that they can be successful? An average person will try to go through recovery about 8 times, but it can happen, and it does. And the important thing is we don't lose hope in that individual. The next slide. Other strategies that we are looking at and are implemented across other locations across the state are syringe exchange programs, various jail programs, peer support models, education campaigns, and definitely the youth and school programs. So we want to integrate more of this throughout our efforts. And then I think the last slide, other strategies for us all. So, you know, we often think, well, what can we do? And ultimately, promote compassion, which I think we need that more now than ever, right? We've got to reduce the stigma. Recovery is possible. We have to see the person. We have to meet the person where they are. Some other things that you can do, simple steps, lock your medications, you know, have the conversations with your children. Think about pain. There have actually been studies that show that opiates really are not necessarily needed for, like, for instance, post-surgery. You know, when you have basic pain management after surgery, there is actually a physician up in the mountains of North Carolina who's done this study, that true education and understanding of your pain and what you are going through and what to expect, along with an extra strength Tylenol and an ibuprofen combined, is just as effective as an opiate. So there's so many things that we can do, but most of all, let's promote that good mental health. Mental health is a part of whole person health. We don't need to just talk about those primary care visits, but are we taking care of our body and are we taking care of our mind? And that is it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Stu. You did a very good job. We have a copy of this PowerPoint at our desk, and I'm going to direct the county manager to post this PowerPoint with your permission on our website.
Absolutely.
So that the citizens can click on it and go through it and look at it more in depth, and also click on those links.
Absolutely.
For help or for more information. To the viewing audience, one of the reasons we asked Ms. Stoop to come, I asked Commissioner Freeman about a month ago to bring someone here and go through that. There's an opportunity for grant funding at the state level with the, it's called the Memorandum of Agreement between the state of North Carolina and local government on proceeds relating to the settlement of opiate litigation. And in order for us to get in on that funding, they asked us to sign a memorandum of agreement and send it to Raleigh. All 100 counties are in this settlement if you want to join. And I think it's a good idea that Gates County become part of this. Anytime we have funding to educate our citizens with marketing or whatever we might be able to use that funding for, if we're so fortunate to get funding, is a plus for Gates County. We don't want our citizens to fall victim to this if we can do anything proactively to prevent it. So that's one of the reasons I asked Commissioner Freeman, and thank you, and Ms. Stute for following up on this so that we can get this resolution signed tonight and get it to Raleigh. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners have pushed this all the way up the chain. So we're going to be in on it with other 100 of counties that's in North Carolina, and I thank you again. Do anyone else have any comments or questions for Ms. Stute before she takes her seat?
Excellent presentation, Ms. Stute. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
It's pretty staggering, the very first slide showing the amount that it takes to kill someone is enough to open your eyes. It's good.
Thank you for the info. I know you hated getting off of COVID you've been dealing with that. Thank you for all your help with that. I know there's and I get them confused, either an FNP or a PA that's in the audience, I know tonight, that is looking into getting started and getting going in opiate, and I look forward to what she's going to be doing with that. But thank you for bringing this, and I'm glad it's going to be on the website, and thank you for all your help with the COVID stuff going on, too.
Absolutely, absolutely, anytime.
Thank you.
We're
And
here
I
to-
add my thanks too. And certainly, the more we can educate our young people about this, the better off we're going to be to stop it before it gets started.
Absolutely. We've got to have those conversations early. I do this presentation, or actually a little bit longer, to some students, even college students, and when I tell them that I started talking with my son about it when he was 3 years old, they laugh at me. But it takes that these days. We've got to start those conversations early. Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you again. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, y'all
Thank
take
you.
care.
Can I help you carry anything out of you,
I'm
bro?
good, thank you.
All right, thank you again. Next on the agenda, citizen comments. We don't have any citizen comments. Administrative report, departmental reports, county manager. We have Chris Hill.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Hope y'all are doing well today. You have a copy of the August tax collectors report in your packet. Collections have been robust since the bills went out, of course. We collected roughly $702,000 in the month of August. That's about 3% over last August, so that's good. The version that you have came out before the DMV finished releasing their report. So that number for the DMV funds, where it shows 71,690, that was actually 87,712. So
Okay.
that was good as well. So we just got the ball rolling, the bills out, and rocking and rolling right now.
Rock and roll.
And I see
Very good.
Zacchaeus had a good number of monies that they had recouped
Yeah,
from those delinquent.
almost $11,000 for August. So, for August. So that's good.
Certainly.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Hill?
One last time you ever gonna hear it from me. Any update?
No, sir. No updates.
At least you've been consistent the last year.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I have not had an update since the last time I sent you all an update from Zacchaeus on that account.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else?
Okay. Thank you,
Questions?
Chris. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Finance Officer Kim Outland, do you have any report you would like to give us at this time?
Good evening, everyone.
Good day.
Good morning. Good afternoon, whatever it is.
I don't have much on my report for this evening. Just a couple of grant updates. Our first report for our ARPA funds were due August 31st, so that was turned in. We didn't have really anything to report at this time for expenditures. We haven't obligated any funds or spent any funds. I did have to do an extensive calculation as a part of the report to see if Gates County had any lost revenue, and we did not. This calculation, I believe, can be done at 3 different points in time. So we have done the first calculation. The next will be looking at December of 2021. I was in a class last week, and there was a presentation with the School of Government by Karen Malonzi, and that's, I think, overall for North Carolina, there weren't a lot of places that had lost revenue, unless you're looking at somewhere that may have had more of the tourism aspect. We all budgeted very conservatively, and then we had really good sales tax revenue overall for the state. So the School of Government is offering what they're calling office hours, 1 day each week, September and October, and I believe they are offering a free class in October regarding these funds. So if anyone's interested in any of those dates, I'll be more than happy to provide that for you guys. The other grant that we discussed at the last meeting was for the broadband grant, the NTIA broadband grant. The application was due on August 17th. It had been submitted in a timely manner. And when I originally had written this report, it was in the review process. We had been notified last week that additional information was being requested. We have submitted that information today. So more to come on that grant. Any questions about the grant updates that I had?
Well, it could be a good sign that they didn't kick us out.
True. Excuse me. The other piece of information I wanted to talk about tonight in your packet was the sales tax revenue. We have received our last payment in September for June in fiscal year 21. We actually still had an excess over budget of $379,210. And that was even with some of the budget amendments that we had done throughout the year. I put in your packet a sales tax revenue summary from fiscal year 18 through what we budgeted in fiscal year 22. As you can see, each year there has been an increase in the sales tax revenue. We have not had a decline. We actually, after that last payment was received in September for fiscal year 21, we still earned more than what we budgeted for in fiscal year 22. We were not as conservative for fiscal year 22. We're not talking about a big gap, but that does make me feel better to see that our actuals came in higher than what we budgeted for in 22 so far, to give us a little wiggle room in case, something happens and there is a decline in sales tax revenue that was unexpected. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of a little snapshot of a five-year trend. That was all that I really had in our report. Our auditors will be here in October. They will do part of the audit online as we did last year, where we submit things to them and then they will come on site at the end of October. And we did post our finance position that we will be hiring in October. Any questions?
Finally.
I just want to thank Kim and the team for adjusting that budget for the broadband grant. They worked tirelessly over the weekend to get it done. Kim's been out. You can see that she's not feeling well. She worked from home for a couple of days, but they got it in with, I don't see Reba Green Holly is the grant writer, and Roanoke Connect Holdings is the person that we work with to get application for this NTIA grant for almost $2 million. And I think the award will be made. They will let people know whether they have been successful in November. And I just want to thank you for working. I watched the emails all weekend, and I was on pins and needles because I wanted to make sure we got it in with the due date. They did give us a 3-day extension just in case, but we didn't need it. They worked tirelessly to get it in by 5 o'clock today. That was the original due date, and they made it. So thank you for all your hard work.
That's good. Job well done.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions, or we good?
I think you're good. Just stay in the room.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask, request the county manager to take explain the budget amendment request from the sheriff, Gates County Sheriff Office. I don't see Sheriff Campbell, so overview from the county manager would have to suffice.
Yes, Madam Chair. What you have before you, the board, is a budget amendment request submitted
Talking phone, microphone.
submitted by the sheriff. He is requesting a $1,000 amendment to actually create a new budget accounting line for other services. This would be for transportation services. The amount would be $1,000. He is requesting that these funds be done by a transfer of funds within his budget of $1,000 from his departmental supply line item. This arose, the finance officer received an invoice in the amount of $190 for a transport from a person in custody from Sunbury to Raleigh. Since this was not part of the sheriff's budget and had not been pre-approved, the invoice was denied. Sheriff was advised of the option of submitting a budget amendment request to pay for the service. He has submitted that. He is proposing to use auxiliary officers. He has used the invoice we received, and in the memo you have of using former Sheriff Edward Webb to do the transportation of people to and from the mental health facilities. So this is a discretionary item for the board's consideration. Does not have any significant budgetary impacts, as the sheriff is proposing transferring money from one line item in his budget to the creation of a new line item for transportation services.
Madam Chairman, I happen to be familiar with this, and not only just what I read, but also what I know. And I wouldn't mind, I would like to make in the form of a motion to pass this budget amendment F-22008.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second.
And so this person, I guess, is he using different people, or is it just going to be Edward?
It may be different people.
They're like independent contractors. Okay.
Okay, any more discussion before I ask for the vote?
Would the county manager, I heard Mr. Hoffler use the phrase independent contractor. Would that be the right
Yes,
phrase?
they're
for
not
what we're
members
talking
of the sheriff's department.
Right, he's talking about using members of the auxiliary. I may defer to Mr. Freeman, but I'm sure that if this is, transporting people in custody of the sheriff's department, that they have to have some type of, credentialing in order to do that type of service.
Correct, very well put, Mr. County Manager. What it is, Commissioner Owens, is that in order to transport, it would have to be someone in sworn status. And the sheriff has an auxiliary, but each one of them are sworn and meet the qualifications as a deputy sheriff.
Probably be operating under the county's liability coverage, I would think. Still?
In every case, be transported by a sheriff's department vehicle, and they would be the ones that are sworn to the sheriff as an auxiliary.
Okay. Madam Chair, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval in a second. We're ready to vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yeah, amendment approved. Okay, where am I? We don't have any public hearings. Old business, update on water billing change implementation, Timothy Heshbeth and Diane Hendricks. Will you come forward, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, you know that last month it was decided to go to change the billing cycle for the water billing. That is in process, and Mr. Hedgepeth and Ms. Hendricks are here just to give the board a brief overview of where we're at with that transition.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, I don't know what information you may have been given already. Do you have maps or anything?
No, we do not.
Okay, if you'll be so good. There's one from the very, let me see. No, go ahead and give all those out. I'll have these. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Timmy is handing out a proposed meter reading schedule and billing schedule. A proposed change to our water bill as a means of notifying our customers what the change is going to be. And then also, he's providing you with a map showing the area, because we are currently in a one-cycle billing mode with everyone being billed at one time, and we have to create the second cycle. And instead of recreating the wheel, he and I discussed this, and so we went over the meter reading books. That's the way the county is divided up into 6 books. And book 2 and 3 comprise basically half of the county. So and as you can see in the map, that's the northern portion of the county. And so books 2 and 3 could be pulled out as a cycle 2. And then you have to have a beginning point at some point to roll this over for every other month. And as you can see by the meter reading billing schedule, the usage month for October, only cycle 2 will receive the bill. Because if we didn't begin somewhere, one of the cycles would receive a 3-month water bill. And I think that would be a hardship on half of our county. And as you can see by the bill, in red, the utility billing changes. There's not a real simple way to explain this. Only if your account number begins with 1, 4, 5, or 6, you will not receive the bill in December. If your account number begins with 2 or 3, you will receive a bill in December, and beginning in January 2022, accounts will be billed every other month. If your account begins with 1, 4, 5, or 6, you will be billed in January for your October and November water usage. That way, the meter readers get a chance to read it in December, and you'll be billed in January. If your account begins with 2 or 3, you will be billed in February for your November and December water usage. And then, of course, for any questions, please call customer service. And on the back side of the bill, you see highlighted in yellow, is just an explanation that one item the county manager came up with as beginning with the 2-month billing cycle to completely abolish the 10-month penalty, the 10% penalty that occurred on the 16th. And then on the 26th, to increase the service fee from $40 to $60, because you're buying yourself 10 days in there without an additional fee. So increase the fee on the 26th. And according to general statute, we have to allow 10 days between billing cycle end and when we can do disconnects.
And part of that is, as we had discussed, and Ms. Hendricks, had brought out, since this is a fee and it will be the increasing of a fee, this will require an action by the board to actually have a hearing to increase that fee from the $40 to the $60. Okay. And I plan on scheduling that for your October meeting.
Okay.
And wouldn't we also have to, I know the monthly fee is $12 for, what, 2,000 gallons?
The base fee.
The base fee. So now the base fee bi-monthly will be $24.
Yes.
We debated that one. You could either, because it's still going to be $12 a month, but but we could change it to 24 every 2 months.
I think it'll be clearer to people.
If that may simplify, it can be, it's 6 one way, half dozen the other, but I can, if it's pleasure of the board, I can make that change as well.
I think it would be clearer to the citizens if we were saying every 2 months your base fee is $24.
It needs to go in the rules and regulations and our fee schedules, those changes need to be updated.
On our user fees that we do at the beginning of the budget.
Yes. Our user fees, and they went into the budget as a fee schedule, so that'll have to be corrected. And also a customer service policy, that's going to have to be amended also.
Somebody asked a question, I'll come back to it.
So the last 2 comments made by Ms. Hendricks, all of that would need to be addressed at hearing time and can be voted on then as well.
Okay.
That would give enough time for the rollout and everything?
Yes.
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 And our software can be adapted to bi-monthly.
Yes, data services with our Edmunds software company, they can go in and change the parameters because it's just more than the dates and they have to go in and change the internal workings on it. And yes, they can be able to do that. Yeah, not for sure if that's going to be a fee yet, but they said they could make the changes because if they can't do that, then we have to call up each one of those 2,000 clients and change it manually.
Okay.
Tim, how about, will we have time or is it possible for Edmunds to run a test, some type of test or something to make sure it's going to come out like we're hoping it's going to come out? I'm not talking about on the whole book or anything, but.
You talking about like a special mailing or something?
Well,
Send
Yes.
something out?
just to make sure that we don't get a bill that comes out the first time that has any errors in it, is what I'm referring to.
The way the system's set up and the way we were fortunate enough to break it and split the county in half by books that's already in existence in Edmunds, by pulling out book 2 and 3, which are already
Programmed.
programmed in the system, we can pull those 2 books that are existing and create that as cycle 2. So all the data's there. It's literally as simple as pulling those 2 books, which are already in the system, and creating a cycle 2, and leaving cycle 1 as is with that data pooled to create cycle 2.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's.
So the system, the software is already there. The billing won't change. It's literally when the bills go out, you pull up cycle 1, once everything's checked, you submit. Well, now, when you pull up cycle 1 is just going to be book 1, 4, 5, and 6. And cycle 2 will be book 2 and 3. So nothing will change. It'll just be you submit either cycle 1 or cycle 2 for billing.
Okay.
All the other software is there and in place.
That's correct. There's no real change of data.
Okay.
It's just a
a time
change in the processing of which ones go out in which billing cycle.
Okay.
So will we have to wait until after the October hearing for this to be implemented? I know we have to do the fee change.
Yes,
So
one of the things that we want to do was, just to give you an update on this, also wanted to get this information out on the county website, the map, some information. I'd like to sit down with water and customer service and also have like a discussion type interview with the press, just to try to get enough, as much advance notice out to the public about this change. So when it does go into implementation, the one group isn't sitting there wondering, where's my bill? So we want to try to get as much public information out in advance.
And I know we're adding stuff to the back page, and I'll be honest, I don't look at my water bill. I just set it up for bill pay the day it comes in. But I think Warren has just updated the website. We got a new website address, so we could change that for the online paying. It's on the back of it. It's gatescountync.gov now, I think. So we could update the URL. I think that's right. I know it's changed from bookmarks and stuff, but we could just update that on the online, on the back page of that.
Either one pulls it up.
I'm sure we could work with the planning department and get, a map that's a little bit more, better delineated, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to put on the website.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Diane or Timothy?
We'll start the publicity campaign.
Yes, this publicity campaign will begin 1st of October. Facebook, county's website. Because
Index.
not everyone gets the Gates County
I
Index.
understand that, but some do, so put it in there too.
Right. So thank you, Cal Bryant.
Have you begun to get any comments?
Yes,
Well, change is always hard for some.
it is.
But
A
I
lot of
think-
the seniors are not accepting it very well.
It's going to be hard for them they budget a certain number a month, and then when they call and see they've got X amount of dollars in their account, well, I can come in and get that money, and then, I'm going to have to educate my folks to say, hey, look, they got 2 months worth of water bills. So when they call and say, is your water bill due this month or, next month? So don't spend that money so-and-so, because I know what's going to happen from what I do for a living.
We will be getting the calls. I haven't received a bill. Yes.
Yeah, it's no matter how much public relations we do there will be
That happens
calls.
on a regular schedule.
That actually might be a good idea. If there was a flyer that could be put up in local businesses,
Yeah.
just to like Linda said, to help spread the word. Some people read the index, some people don't. Anything we can do, pick some kind of flyer, something to put up
We
at
can do that.
grocery store and businesses and stuff.
That's been done in the past. When we went from a 2-month billing to a 1-month billing, we put out flyers.
Thank y'all.
So we're just going back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now we're up to new business. We're just about to the end of the agenda. You have in your packet the resolution that I spoke about during the opiate presentation. It's a resolution by the County of Gates approving the memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and local governments on proceeds relating to the settlement of opiate litigation. And you have a lot of information, not a lot, you have some information about what's in this MOA and what's going on with that. It's the same MOA that all other counties are getting. And so this is a request. After you have looked at it and you've heard about it, we need a motion to approve the resolution and memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and local government on proceeds relating to the settlement of opiate litigation.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
And I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And we have a request for surplus and disposition of assets. We turn to that. Need the motion to approve the request as presented.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
And I'll second that, Madam Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Moving right along. Grant application opportunities. You have in your packet, I can find it, a grant application. This application is going to be made, if your approval, to Nucor Steel in Hertford County. We have a grant that was approved, and we have the dollars to offer senior citizens workshops around technology. The issue is, it's not a big issue, but the issue is we don't have a standalone lab for that, so we wrote a grant to ask Nucor, would they help us fund 15 laptops and a charging station so that we can teach those classes just about anywhere where there's an internet, like in a church or wherever. We have an agreement, verbal agreement, and because the public school system is a collaborator in that, it's called the Band North Carolina Grant, and one of the partners is the school system, and they have agreed to allow us to use one of their labs during whatever time we set up these workshops. Well, we can't use that until after hours, of course, that's the school system, and then we have to have someone to go out on Saturday morning to open up and, be available, and that's fine. But going forward, we need to have the opportunity to teach those workshops in some of the faith-based institutions or churches that we have in the county or wherever else. So this grant is going to be sent to Nucor in Hertford, no, in Winfall, not Winfall, Winton. Help me, Jack, you work there.
Cofield.
Cofield. And we're going to ask them for, like I said, 15 laptops, 15 Microsoft Art Touch mice, and 1 charging cart or station for a total of $21,961. I wrote this grant with help from another person that helped me research it, and to send it to Nucor, I have to put a cover page on it. The local governing authority, which is the Board of Commissioners, is the ones that are applying for that grant, because when you apply, you want a nonprofit. You don't want, it's certain criteria. They don't have a format really for application. You just get the information into them and send it to them, and they have I think a 2-member board. I think it's the controller and the general manager that will review it and make a decision whether they fund it, not fund it, fund some of it. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. So I saw that Nucor they do this kind of thing as far as helping out local governments, school systems, wherever, but you have to apply. And so this would, if you so approve, this will be submitted this week so that we can find out if we have this opportunity, and if we don't, we'll write another grant. In the meantime, we're going to use the school system, classroom, technology classroom. I've already talked to the superintendent because they were collaborators on that Band North Carolina grant. They're one of the partners. So it wasn't anything he wasn't expecting, because when we asked him to help us get the $5,000 for the grant, well, of course he helped us and letter of support and other letters of support in the county. So that's the background of why I'm presenting this tonight.
I make a motion that we'll approve the grant application to be
I'll
sent in.
second that motion, Madam Chairman. And I would like to also comment just in there, as a Tier 1 county in 2018, I'm glad that you got that in there, because
We're not named.
I saw that. I said, I'm going to leave it in there, see if they catch it. Yes, we are Tier 2 now instead of Tier 1, and that has knocked us out of a lot of grant opportunities as we search for grants as a board. We don't qualify because we are Tier 2, but when you explain, and I talked to the grant funders, that it's because of the migration of people that have jobs in Virginia, and they live here, that are real.
Have jobs with Newport, too.
Yeah, we have jobs at Newport too, but it's, it helps when you explain it. So if they ask me that question, I'm ready for them, because I got all this paperwork in my house to explain it, because they got it out of the NTIA grant that we just wrote, and we're really using that as a model.
And Madam Chairman, since you addressed that, should we ask the county manager to look into that? Because we believe, all of us, I believe that we're Tier 1 county. And the only reason we're Tier 2 is because we got sucked up by Hampton Roads as part of their addressing the number and also the salary of our county citizens. Do you think the county manager can do anything about that?
I could look into it, but that's determined by federal government, U.S. Census Bureau. That would be very difficult to have changed.
Have we ever,
And since we dropped down the census, shouldn't that help us a little bit?
Might make it worse.
yeah, have we ever asked Congressman Butterfield to address that, or have we ever brought that to his attention?
I brought it to his attention.
You did?
I
Okay.
did. I brought it to his attention and to Reginald Spate's attention, his director in this area.
Remember a few years ago that we were considered part of the Metro
Oh, yeah.
and that we worked to try to get out of that we were not part of the Metro of Hampton Roads. And it was adversely affecting us, but we didn't get anywhere.
Yes, I believe, if I recall, county manager may have seen something on this, and maybe our county attorney has it. We may have lost about $500,000 in agricultural funds due to the fact of moving from Tier 1 to Tier 2.
Oh, it affects all areas. So,
Okay.
but we can try.
It won't hurt to try. I think we voted on that. Y'all distracted me.
No, we're ready to vote.
Are you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'll try to get this off as soon as possible, once I get the cover page and sign it, and get it to Newcourt and keep you updated as far as how that's going. That is the end of the agenda. We have Commissioner and County Manager comments. During this session, I had planned on making a comment. So, usually I go from wherever, left to right, right to left. But with the recent situations, as the chair, I had prepared some comments, but I'm going to read them anyway. And if I make the mistake of talking in the past tense or present tense, forgive me, because this was written or typed out before the night, and I didn't have the time today to change some of the wording. But these comments and question is directed to Commissioner Jones in his attendance. I found out this morning that he was going to be here, so I'm going to read this statement as the chair of the Board of Commissioners, and then I will ask him a question or have him to respond. Members of the Gates County Board of Commissioners have been constantly fielding questions about the intent to resign at the end of September, announced by Commissioner Jonathan Jones on his Facebook page during the month of July. The following statement is meant to help clarify the citizens' confusion and misinformation around the authority of the chair and the Board of Commissioners in the present situation. Having seen the public statement of this resignation, it cannot be ignored. There is no harm or injury to Commissioner Jones in moving forward, but we are delayed as a board to respond or take any form of action, necessary action. There is not a North Carolina general statute that gives the board the authority to sanction or remove a commissioner for nonfeasance of the oath of office or general unprofessional behavior unless there is a charge of a misdemeanor. So to address the announcement on Facebook and 2 articles in the Gates County Index, of which were prompted by this board, which were not prompted by this board, I make the following. The reasons stated by Commissioner Jones on Facebook were that he was not pleased with the fact of how things started, and he's not the chair, health reasons, and number 3, spend more time with family. All valid reasons. But on December 7, 2021, Commissioner Jones expected to be elected chair. The election resulted in my selection of chair and Jack Owens vice chair. During the same meeting, committees were assigned or confirmed. It's important to recognize that commissioners serve on various committees and boards that serve as a link between the board and the citizen. At that meeting, Commissioner Jones relinquished all of his committee assignments except for a committee that has not met in at least 7 years. I accepted the membership on those committees. It's important that the citizens realize that the commissioners work broadly, but specifically in concert with committees, additional boards, and the commissioners can request to work toward county resolutions or are appointed to help resolve county solutions by serving on ad hoc committees. Example, a committee was formed to address the Confederate monument matter, and most recently, Jack Owens was assigned to assist in resolving the issues with the water department. Commissioner Owens requested Commissioner Jones to assist. He agreed, then declined a month later. Commissioner Hoffa took his place, so Mr. Jones does not serve on any active committees. That does not preclude him or any commissioner from addressing citizens' concerns, but it does cause unnecessary misinformation and disinformation when matters are submitted as a gotcha moment. I have no comment about the health or family reasons submitted except to say that Commissioner Jones has been very active after the time of his initial announcement. He has attended board of meetings at DSS or Department of Social Services, countywide events, sport events, fundraisers, etc., but has not attended the last 2 regular board meetings and the special meeting where our U.S. Congressman took the time to address the citizens and listen to the Board of Commissioners. The board has continued to serve by gathering data, information, and appropriately and legislatively discussing agenda items and voting in open sessions. And we will continue to do so as long as we have a quorum of 3 commissioners in attendance to conduct an official meeting. The Hall Township has been without representation at official meetings for 2 months. A citizen, and that's plural. When I say citizen, a citizen, I'm talking plural, has asked about taxpayer dollars being paid to commissioners not actively serving. Again, there is no official action that can be taken concerning the stipend commissioners receive for their service as commissioners. The commissioners receive a total of $726.53, and the chair receives $865.57 per month before taxes. Now, some of us may donate that stipend, and that is our choice, but the funds are for actively serving, not sending emails every now and again. This board never thought about a commissioner resigning, especially since 3 commissioners are up for re-election in 2022. Commissioner Jones has been treated as a commissioner, and Commissioner Jones has maintained full capacity as a commissioner right up to the date that he makes certain in a formal letter of resignation. He never officially resigned. The Board of Commissioners is not just a group of friends, neighbors, community activists, church members, etc. It is the governing body for this county. And as such, we should be held to a higher standard of behavior, of accountability, credibility, and integrity. Finally, we have moved forward with the legal opinion of the county attorney, which reads, North Carolina General Statute 153A-76. In summary, it requires of county commissioners the efficient administration of county affairs. Concerning the issue of repeated absences from the County Commissioners Board meeting raises ethical and philosophical questions about what it means to fill the role of a board member. Presence at meetings is important for developing working relationships and for interacting with citizens and supporting staff when decisions need to be understood and addressed. Continued absences, whether excused or unexcused at a minimum, have a detrimental effect on due process and the business of the county and the constituents for which the elected board members represent. This chair and the board do not wish to normalize the practice of absenteeism since it does injustice to the public for which we serve. Again, I apologize for speaking as if Commissioner Jones is not present. He is. So now I ask the questions so many taxpayers and constituents have asked each one of us. Commissioner Jones, do you intend to resign at the end of the month of September as you stated on Facebook and the Gates County Index on 2 occasions? If so, a letter of resignation with a date certain must be submitted to our county attorney, Mr. Philip Godwin, or the county manager, Mr. Tim Wilson, or the board chair, Dr. Althea Riddick. No response?
No, ma'am, I have commissioner comments when we get to those, but
So what now?
I don't have a response to your question. I have commissioner comments at the end of the meeting, though. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from other commissioners?
I guess no, I'm fine. Thank you.
No comment.
Linda Hoffler,
No comment.
county manager?
No, Madam Chair.
Hearing no comments, this statement will be, of course, read into the minutes, official minutes of the Board of Commissioners on this date. It's also live streamed. The minutes become official once approved at the next meeting. You can look at it at your leisure, at your pleasure, but this is official statement from the Board of Commissioners as read by the chair, Dr. Althea Riddick. I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.